right? If you are a Saudi citizen, is it barbaric to stone a married woman to death for adultery?
Why are you asking somebody who living in the UK a question about there's diversity? What do you want to do? Do you want to make Saudi Arabia another Libya? You go take the
No. I'm asking you. Safe. Look, I know you're trying to divert from this, right? But let's let's answer the question, and I'll let you then move to Libya if you want, right? Just first answer the question. Is it okay if you were living in Saudi Arabia and a woman is convicted, a married woman is convicted, I say convicted, advisedly, of adultery, and she is stoned to death? Do you think that's barbaric? If you are living in Saudi Arabia, do you think that's barbaric?
I don't think it's barbaric. Why would I? The same way that you agree on certain rules that we follow in this country, let's say the gay rules and everything, I agree with them because I live here.
Okay, all right.
It doesn't make them acceptable to me, but I have to agree with them because I live under this country.
So you have no moral compass? Your moral compass is defined by whatever barbarism is going on in the country you happen to live in.
No. We as Muslims, we have to abide by the rules you're living.
I don't think they are the rules, Saif. I don't think that is Islam. And in fact, let me tell you something, Saif. You and your views and the people that support these sorts of medieval barbaric practices are not good Muslims. You're an embarrassment to the religion. You're an embarrassment to British democracy and secularism and liberalism. You're an embarrassment, in fact, not just to Islam, but to humanity. You're an embarrassment to human beings. Anybody who comes on this radio show and thinks it's okay to stone women to death, married or not married, I can't even believe you got hung up on that finicky detail. Married or not married. If you think it's okay to stone a woman to death, you are an embarrassment to civilization. And I wonder, Saif, because I detected a slight accent to you, I wonder why on earth you thought it's okay to live in this country when you admire and when you revere barbaric medieval laws such as stoning people to death. Why on earth would you choose a liberal democracy and then promote such views? Saif, let me tell you right now, this is Maajid Nawaz, born and raised a Muslim, a liberal Muslim. I consider you an embarrassment to this religion. I consider you an embarrassment to Islam.
I come from a very reasonable place.
If your views haven't changed, then I assume, if I may, that your perspective on, say, the Quran says, "As-sariqu wa-sariqatu faqta'u aydihima." The male and female thief, cut their hands off. Would you agree with chopping off someone's hand as a punishment for theft?
No, I don't agree with chopping off someone's hand as a punishment for theft.
If an Islamic State existed, should it chop off someone's hand for theft if all the Sharia conditions are met? Please, yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Please, answer that. Yes or no?
Look,
I'll tell you my answer. No. What's yours?
On some of my theological views, I'm clear. On other theological views, I'd like to hear what the consensus of the scholars would be. Right. And on other theological views, I'm not made.
Hold on, Nadia. I'm sorry. Let me ask the question, then you can respond. Right. So at the end of the day, when the Quran directly says, "Wallati takhafuna نشوزهن فعظوهن واهجروهن في المضاجع واضربوهن." Now I'm going to read to you what that means, yeah? And that's from Surah An-Nisa, the 4th chapter, on the 34th passage. And it says, "And for those women whose disobedience you fear, first admonish them, then part ways with them, and if that doesn't work, beat them. Then if they obey you," it continues, "if they obey you, فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا عَلَيْنَا سَبِيلًا." If they obey you, right? It finishes off, "Then do not seek a way against them. Surely Allah is high and great." What context could possibly justify that in today's modern age?
Anybody with common sense would see that the first step you take, okay, if you have problems with a woman or your wife, whoever it is, the first step you take is to discuss with them, okay?
Okay, that's the first step. But the passage goes on beyond that first step, doesn't it? So what about this third step?
What idiot of a man is going to go back after he's separated from his wife and say, "I'm going to teach her a lesson because she's still disobeying me and I'm going to beat her"? So then why is the third step there? Why? Hang on a minute.
If that's illogical for a man to do it, why did God prescribe it?
Because God's given us steps, just like how he...
So the third step, what do you think of that third step, Nadia, where it says beat them? What do you think of that?
Just like how he didn't say In the first instance, the alcohol is haram. Initially, he said, do not pray while you are intoxicated.
Yeah.
Everything comes in stages so that people can use their common sense and their reason.
Okay.
Which God has given us. Okay.
Yep.
Secondly,
before you get to the secondly, answer the firstly. Nadia, whoa. The secondly doesn't matter yet because you haven't answered the firstly. I agree with you. It's got 3 stages. So what do you think of that third stage where it says, فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, beat them? What do you think of that? It's in the Quran. It's wrong, isn't it?
There's a lot of hadiths to support ayahs in the Quran. If one was to go and look at that...
I'm going to ask you for a 4th time. Is it wrong that the Quran says husbands can beat their wives?
It depends which context you take it in.
Okay, which context is it okay for a husband to beat their wife?
Never, it's never okay.
Well, you just said it depends which context it is. So it is wrong then, isn't it?
It depends which context it's saying it, because each translation is different.
Oh, no. You and I both know, because I read to you that passage in its full context. We both know it's in the context of a wife not obeying her husband. I'm asking you specifically, Nadia, what you think of this passage that allows men to beat their wives. Is it wrong? I'm saying it's wrong. Do you think it's wrong?
Wrong?
Right.
Of course it's wrong, and I told you it's wrong. But at the end of the day, majority of these people that are going around doing these extremely sick things...
No, I'm not asking you if it's wrong to beat your wife. I'm asking you if that passage is wrong. In that Quranic passage that I read to you, I'm saying it's wrong, it must be abandoned. What do you think?
I cannot agree with you.
There we are. There's the problem.
At the end of the day, I am the first person who will defend women's rights in Islam.
Oh, wow.
Not to say that what is mentioned about beating women is correct, but there are reasons why things have stages, because it should never get to that stage in the first place.
Sometimes it's okay then.
Secondly, this whole Wahhabi mentality of teaching people out of fear, teaching them women to be suppressed. Okay.
Yeah, well, sorry, Nadia. You can't blame it on one sect. Wahhabism, sorry. You know, you're blaming it on one sect when even you couldn't condemn that passage.
Would you like to live in a Sharia state?
It depends where it is. I've been.
You wouldn't like this country to become a Sharia state?
I don't think it would.
Would you like it to be?
Obviously, I would like to live under Sharia.
And in that, you would condone stoning of adulterers, for example?
No, not necessarily. It's a far bigger issue, Jeremy, than this. You cannot just pick and choose bits and bobs of the Sharia. It's a very broad issue. The social strata, the circumstances have to be
so what
ideal for this to take place.
What if the Sharia conditions for stoning were
This has nothing to do with the education. Let's look at the education.
No, but that's what's being taught in the schools. So if the Sharia conditions for stoning the adulterer were met, then is that something in principle we should condone?
It's not being taught in school.
If we cannot sit on Newsnight and openly say that in principle we don't condone the stoning of adulterers or the chopping of the hands if Sharia conditions are met anywhere in the world, then we've got a problem. Because I would condemn that in principle.
This is not what we were here to discuss.
You do, presumably, don't you? You do condemn the amputation of hands and the stoning to death.
If it's not according to a due process of law in any situation,
So if it's by due process, it's okay to stone people to death?
The fact is that these things are not taught in schools.
No, Ibrahim, sorry. If by due process, is it okay to stone people to death by due process?
This thing is not taught in schools, and that's what we're here to discuss.
I'm pleading with you for the sake of my son, who's 13, who's in a Muslim-only school that I have no choice over because I don't live with him. If his teacher is unable to condemn stoning in principle or chopping off the hand in principle, I worry for the future of my son. Please set an example as an educationalist and come out and say that you stand for human rights and values, liberal values.
You're right to worry, because these things should have no place in school, because children don't understand these things. You know as well as I do.
But you can't condemn on national television.
As well as I do that it's a very, very complex issue. It is not black and white. And it's what Crispin Blunt mentioned this morning, that when things are put into a black and white situation, those who are in the grey area could well be pushed towards the black area and the dark arts. This is something we have.
Even our religion, it says to respect the laws of other countries.
Yeah, but if you were living in an ideal Islamic state with all what you would view as the perfect Islamic rule, still slavery isn't allowed in war because it's wrong morally.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I wouldn't.
What do you think?
Agree. I wouldn't completely agree with you on that, because I don't know much about that field. I mean, well, no, even in Islam, in terms of slavery, it's okay, but then there's limits of how you treat the slave. I mean, you can't be treating the slave like a minor, like an inferior person. You have to treat them equally. At the same time, in our scripture it says this and it says that.
Mustafa, come on. Dude, listen, the whole country and perhaps people around the world have just heard you say that as long as you treat your slaves equally, it's okay. Abbas, were the Taliban a terrorist organisation?
The Taliban did things that would be considered to be terrorism. Absolutely correct.
Oh, why phrase it in such a delicate way, Abbas? Are you hurt? Are you scared of hurting their feelings? The Taliban were an evil terrorist organisation. Can you accept that? No, Abbas. Are the Taliban an evil terrorist organisation?
Answer the question.
Yeah, please do. Please do. Without being delicate about it. Please just tell us what you think.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I think. I think terrorism is when you terrorise innocent people, regardless of whether you do it from B-52 bombs from 30,000 feet, or whether you do it from 5 or 10 feet away. It's all terrorism.
Lovely.
The mothers that lose their children, Maajid, and pick the pieces of their children up out of those buildings, they don't care whether it was a Taliban or an ISIS, or if it was a UN or a United Nations or an American or a British bomb.
So the Taliban, the UN and the US are as bad as the Taliban and ISIS, in your view, yeah?
It's all, sorry, say that again?
The UN and the US and the UN and the US are as bad as ISIS and the Taliban, in your opinion.
Did I say that?
Well, you just said it's all terrorism.
Does that mean that I equate them to be exactly
Well, I don't know.
the same?
You tell me. I've asked you whether you can say in one sentence, Abbas, I'm going to ask you one more time before I have to move on. In one clear sentence, can you accept my statement and repeat it after me? The Taliban were an evil terrorist organisation.
I'm not going to repeat that.
But Shamim's been waiting patiently on the line from Harrow. Tell us what you think, Shamim.
Hello, Maajid. Thank you for taking my call.
That's right.
I am originally from Pakistan, and this is a very sad story about young white girls being raped by Muslims, and originally some of them from Pakistan. I like to take you back to Pakistan 40, 50 years ago, 50 years back. I think even then, it is a mindset that I am going to talk about, which was present even in that time against Christian or even Anglo-Indian girls. They were projected as loose character or easy target, because those were the only girls who would go into the professions like nursing or teaching, and they were always taken as easy targets, loose character girls, because they were doing these sorts of jobs, because no other girls, Muslim girls, wouldn't take that job. So all the young boys thought that Christian girls were easy targets, and they were always available for them for fun or that sort of a thing.
Yeah, so it's a cultural attitude, Shamim. That's the thing here. We have to, as well as many other factors, misogyny, toxic masculinity, socioeconomic factors, a lack of education. There is also a cultural element which we simply have to acknowledge.
Yes, that is true. But what I'm saying is that here it has just come up in the newspaper, and it's very, very extreme and very painful. But it has always been there, and especially these boys who come from Pakistan and their ties and families are back from Pakistan. I think it's the attitude which has been ingrained in them. And even now, these days, I think Christian girls and even Hindu girls are forcibly converted into Islam just because these boys want to get married to them.
Yeah, well, Shamim, listen, thank you for calling in. There's lots to speak about within our own communities, and this is just a start. But